Hello, Nevada County. It's your friendly neighborhood political correspondent here on the other side of the 2022 midterm election. And what a momentous election it was, am I right? For the results of the local election, visit nevadacountyca.gov/elections. I'm not going to go into them today. So when I share with people how much I enjoy politics, sometimes they come back to me with how divisive partisanship can be. Or maybe a cleverly cynical quote by the very talented but chronic non-voting writer Charles Bukowski. To me, though, enjoying politics isn't about partisanship or arguments. How much you know about what's going on in the spheres of the community with the powers to make things happen directly impacts how you relate to your community, even if you don't participate. That's politics to me. How much you know or don't know about those in office and those running for office is by definition how you relate to power and defines how you can affect change if you want change. It all goes into being an educated and engaged citizen and voter. Democracy, baby. My guest today leads a politics-involved organization of which I've made no mystery of being a member and superfan, because this organization has at its heart community education in the realm of current politics, including policy issues and elections. I'm thrilled to welcome Fran Cole, president of the League of Women Voters of Nevada County. Hi, Fran. How's it going?
Hi, MaryJane. It's going well. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So this is a fairly informal conversation. I'm a fairly informal person, but I do have questions for you today.
Okay.
So why don't we start off? Can you tell me a little bit about your history with the League of Women Voters in Nevada County?
I've been a member of the League for many years, maybe 15 years, but I decided in 2017 that I would become more involved. And I joined the board and was actually chair of the education series at that time. And at that time, the League was basically an in-person meeting organization once a month, at a church. And we have really evolved since then. And I became president 2 years ago. And I have been very involved in migrating the organization from what was once the League of Women Voters of Western Nevada County to the League of Women Voters of Nevada County. It would never made sense to me why such a vibrant part of our county was excluded. So we made that change, and now we represent the entire county.
Cool. So you mentioned how the League's evolved a little bit. Can you speak a little bit about how the League's role in the community has evolved?
The League historically has provided a couple of different types of services to the community. One is that we provide voter education, and we have done that through online meetings more recently, or in-person forums, or a combination. That's what we have found to really be the most successful way of delivering information to our community. So we have candidate forums at the Rood Center. People can show up in person and participate, and they can also watch later when the film from Nevada County Media is produced, and then they can find it online on YouTube.
Okay. And then, so other than the election-related education opportunities, what kind of education opportunities might the community look out for that don't have to do with elections?
We look at issues that are important to members of our community. We have had various forums or meetings that have had as their topics diversity, equity, and inclusion. We did a series with the Landmarks Commission where we talked about communities that had been underrepresented and in their history, and to try to promote the history for those people. We have had, not necessarily on election matters, but we had a very important forum where representatives of the different political parties all attended and talked about what their parties represented.
And then, how often are these, and how can people get involved with them?
Suggest topics of interest.
Okay.
We have a committee of and the board reviews various topics and decides, what is important to our community, and then that's something that we will present.
Okay. And so, is it like a monthly meeting like it used to be, or is it different now? It's kind of ad hoc.
It's different now, and largely, we started implementing those changes during the pandemic. Everything became online. Our candidate forums were exclusively online for at least one election season. And we found that we can reach many more people than we could at once a month in-person meetings. Saturday mornings are not the best time for people with families. And we found that people like the ability to go back later and watch what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ain't that the truth? You know, as a person with a family of young children, the Saturday mornings were a little tough.
Right, right.
Yeah. So where do you typically hold the meetings now? Now that they're not online so much, do you hold it at different venues throughout the community?
Well, right now we're largely online, and we're not quite back to having large community meetings. I don't think that we feel it's quite safe enough to cram hundreds of people in a room and have that kind of environment that could be unhealthy.
Fair enough.
So right now we have one annual meeting, and then we have ad hoc presentations on different topics, again, of importance to the community.
Cool. So that's your non-election. So what about, during election time, can you tell me a little bit about how the League approaches that and holds their community offerings for community education?
Right. We have two main methods of delivering election-related information, and one is our GOTV Get Out the Vote campaign, where we had interviews on the street, we had campaigns, we had T-shirts made, people stood on overpasses with the signs that said vote. So the Get Out the Vote was extremely important, and it actually was successful because we in Nevada County had an almost 68% voter turnout.
Wow.
And that's compared to about 50% statewide.
For a midterm.
For a midterm.
That's amazing.
And it's not solely due to the League's efforts, but we do what we can, and we're very proud of that turnout.
That's very cool. And so what about the education opportunity? So there's Get Out the Vote, and then so what about, what's the history of the League and running forums, pros and cons, so tell me more about those.
Well, one of our main missions is voter education. And the best way for people to make informed choices among candidates is to present the candidates in a public forum and have them state their positions and then ask them questions. And that is a cornerstone of what the League has always done. So before every election, we have candidate forums, and again, they're at the Rood Center. You can attend in person, or you can watch later online. And we solicit questions in advance and questions at the meeting that are presented to the candidates. And we feel that our forums are extremely well run. We have not received any negative feedback or any claims that we are in any way biased in our forums, and I believe that our rigorous standards for holding those forums pays off.
So you mentioned that you collect questions before the forums and at the forums. Can you tell me how the questions that are actually presented to the candidates at the forums are selected?
I can, because I'm a question screener. So I have, personal information about how that's done.
Expert.
So we solicit questions from the community. We do that in the union and through other publications and through social media. And we receive questions, and then we look at the questions and evaluate, again, what ones are important, what ones make sense. We do not screen out any questions for any political bias. What we do is we eliminate bias if it's incredibly biased from either side, more conservative or more progressive and liberal. But our questions are designed to really determine if the person is suitable, or which candidate is most suitable for that position. Okay. So we have screeners. We have several screeners at every forum, and we look at, first of all, the questions that have come in advance. And then we eliminate questions that are redundant. What we find is, there are usually questions that ask the same question different ways. So we pick the best version, and that's the question that is presented to the candidates. And the candidates get the same question. We often have questions that come in that are a question of a particular candidate and not the other candidates there present. And we, the candidates have to all be able to answer the same questions.
Right. And so if you're doing the screening, and I know that a lot of the League members who are also doing the screening are very involved community members, so they probably have a beat on what's important to the community. So when questions come in, they can really synthesize a question that it would be of most impact in the community for the candidates.
And I think what's even more valuable is the number of questions on a particular topic that come in, because what I have found, especially in some of the recent measures V and W, the questions were very similar in terms of what information they were trying to glean from the people answering. So you can usually tell what's important by just the interest that's presented in the questions themselves.
Gotcha. So really the questions truly do reflect the audience that's present.
Yes. Yes, and the audience that's not present.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The ones watching, the ones that submit them in advance.
Right.
So, what about those pros and cons? I know that there was a pros and cons presentation this year for Measure V and one for Measure W.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and I think those went very well and provided a lot of information. In hindsight, I think we could have spent more time on each of those measures, because there was a lot of information in the community, a lot of letters to the editor, but I think it's really important to have an independent person assemble all of the pros and cons on a particular measure and present them and let the voters be informed and make their own decisions.
And then there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's the candidate forums, there's pros and cons, and then I also recall there being an issues forum for Measure W, I think, where representatives who represented each side of the issue, no on W, yes on W.
Yes.
And so that's run kind of like a candidate forum?
It is run somewhat like a candidate forum, but it basically, but it's usually it's a yes or a no. So it's very easy, it's very simple. You know, it is a pros and cons because there are only two sides, one side that wants it passed and the other side that doesn't.
Right. So it seems to me that the league really takes what's on the ballot and aims to educate the community point by point about each thing that's on the ballot, whether it's a candidate, whether it's an issue. So when you reach out to the community and to candidates and to maybe representatives of different issues, what's the typical response to the league?
I don't think there is a typical response. Everyone is quite different. It really depends on the race itself, and it also depends on whether the person is an incumbent or not. I find that incumbents are often quite busy with their duties, and it's much harder to schedule those people. But we're very careful. We send out several notices of our forums. We try to get candidates to participate. We follow up. We also have a program called Voters Edge. And Voters Edge, candidates have the opportunity to, and we try to get everyone to provide a statement about what their position is for a particular office. Kind of mixed results with that, but I think candidates, after prompting, are more willing to come and make a statement that we can use in that.
Gotcha. And so with the candidate forums, let's say that you have a candidate forum and you invite, there are 3 candidates. Okay, let's say 4 candidates. Yeah. And you send an invitation to each one. If they all 4 respond, great, there's the forum.
We're very happy if that happens.
Yeah, so what if they don't all 4 respond? So tell me what the different scenarios are.
Well, and this is a source of a lot of lack of understanding in the community about why we do things the way we do. Basically, the election laws, in particular the federal election laws, say that if you don't have 2 candidates for office, that is not considered to be a debate, but is instead a candidate forum, which can be viewed for a nonprofit like the League as favoring a particular candidate or actually making a donation of time to that candidate. So it's extremely frustrating when we have a situation, especially in the midterms in the election, where we have 2 people running, one from each party, and one party decides not to, or one representative decides not to show up, because then we can't have it at all. And at voter education and having voters informed about what candidates stand for and what they can expect from these candidates is crucial to our mission. So it's very frustrating for us when we can't hold a forum and do what our mission tells us we need to do.
Right, and I've noticed in the past, maybe there'd be the Senate race might not have all the candidates because you were unable to get the incumbent, like you said, because they're very busy. But there'll only be 1 or 2. But in the 2022 election, I noticed that I think there was only 1 candidate forum that was able to be held. Yeah. So tell me, what do you think is different about 2022?
I think the trend has been headed in this direction. For some reason, the League has been singled out as being a partisan organization, and I can tell you it is not. At all levels, federal, state, and national, the League does not endorse any particular party or candidate. We do advocate for issues that we believe are important to empowering democracy and informing voters, such as voting rights, education, diversity, equity, and inclusion, Those are all very central points to what we're trying to do. So the League has historically taken a position on issues like that. And if you think back about the League and how it was formed, the League was formed by women who didn't sit around in meetings and write letters. There were people that were marching in the streets, women that were being thrown in prison. So the League actually has a very strong history of advocacy, and nothing has really changed. You know, we still advocate for the things that are important to us.
Okay, so you mentioned that the League does advocacy, but I've noticed locally that most of my experience with the League has been more of an education notice rather than advocacy. So does our local League do advocacy as well?
We are a very small league relative to some of the more urban leagues. Bay Area and Southern California are very involved in advocating for legislation that supports our mission. So we're in a little bit different position. You know, we don't lobby, you know, in those bodies. We don't have the resources or the manpower women power to do
and manpower
yeah, to do much in the way of legislation and advocacy for that. So we are more devoted to education. You are correct in that.
Okay, so would the League ever advocate on an issue that it knew the National League had a position on, and that maybe there was a ballot measure at a local level or something?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we definitely would.
Okay.
The State League takes positions on many different initiatives, not all, but they take positions on many of them, and we distribute that information to our community.
Okay.
So we do advocate, you know, through what they, you know, through the tools that they give us.
Okay, so it's not the National League, it's the State League.
State League. Well, the State League, but the National League also takes positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that a few years ago we did a study, the League did a study on the local parks and rec. So is that kind of study typical to what the League does as well? And how does that impact our work?
The League does studies. We have done a few. We aren't as active, again, as some of the leagues that have more resources to do that. But should there be a topic that emerges that a study would be deemed valuable, we would do it.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
And then make recommendations.
Right.
Okay. So we mentioned a little bit ago that you know, women power and manpower.
Yeah.
It's the League of Women Voters. Are men allowed to join?
Oh yes, we accept people of all genders and orientation, political parties. In fact, we welcome that. We are open to anyone that wants to join. We have a number of men that are members. We have one board member who's a man. We would like, you know, more representation, and we would like to also reach out more to young people.
Okay.
You know, people think of the League as, you know, some, I don't know, old women, you know, marching around with sashes, and we do that in the parades. In memory of our ancestors that came before us, but you know, we are increasingly reaching out to youth, youth in government people, and trying to really get young people more involved in politics, because it's easy to be disaffected if you're young in this political climate. So we are very interested in having more young people become involved.
And what if a person wants to be involved in the League's education efforts but doesn't agree with some of the League's advocacy positions? Are they still welcome to be involved?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. In fact, the only way, if we were an organization that did not believe that other voices should be heard, then we would be partisan. We welcome different opinions. The way that you get people thinking and the way you inform people is by hearing all sides of an issue.
Right.
And we welcome, you know, we would like to have the people that maybe disagree with our positions join the League and really find out what we do and what our standards are. And I think that a lot of the criticisms that have been levied at the League would not be valid anymore once they saw how we actually operate.
Right, maybe join.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I think I was going to ask you to comment on recent accusations of partisan bias. You know, there was a piece in the Union, but I feel like you've addressed that a little bit. But is there anything else that you'd like to say about that topic?
I think that, you know, what we are seeing in those letters and in some other criticism we received is typical of what's happening all over the country. Every league has had candidates not show up in increasing numbers and has been accused of bias.
Oh, wow.
And we talked a little bit, some of the issues that we're involved in, such as voting rights, to me, should not be a partisan issue. But when voting rights becomes a partisan issue, then people try to define us in a partisan way. But we're not. We define ourselves, and we want to define ourselves, and we're listening to what people are saying, and we want to hear what they're saying about the league and how we can improve. But we really, if our standards are very rigorous for our candidate forums, and as I said before, we don't hear criticism. People say when they come out of our forums that they were treated fairly. And the one forum that we did hold, which was for the supervisor race, I think went extremely well. Both candidates behaved very professionally. It was I think a great experience, and it gave me a lot of comfort to know that that's still possible.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So that's nice to hear. So the league, is it a 501c3?
It's a 501c3, right?
Okay, and so you do fundraising in the community through membership, and how else? Through
membership, and we also, we recently had to postpone our constitutional challenge, which we're going to revive hopefully in the spring.
Oh, good.
Which is a historical and constitutional quiz that is incredibly fun.
Oh, yeah. Is it hard?
Well, some people say it is. Yeah. It has to be. It's a combination of hard and easy. You have to have a winner, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But but that is a great opportunity for people to kind of see the more lighthearted side of the league.
Yeah. So tell me more about the constitutional challenge.
Well, it involves the marching presidents always show up.
Oh, is that right?
Right. And we had a great event that was that has been postponed, that we will see again, but it's tremendous fun. And you don't have to be an expert in history or the Constitution.
And are you grouped up with people, or do you answer by yourself?
You can form it's teams, and you can form your own team, but if you don't have enough people, we can put you on a team.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. So someone can show up. Will they be fed, or wine, or what?
They'll be fed. It is a fundraiser, so
okay.
So not a huge banquet event, but we will make sure that no one goes away hungry.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Great.
And we also accept community donations.
Okay.
If people believe that our work is important, we encourage them to donate, because our membership, most of the memberships, the funding goes to state and national leagues.
Okay.
So we're very lean locally.
Gotcha.
And really appreciate the help.
Gotcha. Oh, you know what? There's a question I wanted to ask you. Speaking of state and local leagues, so the format that we use locally that you spoke to, is that typical across all leagues? The format for the candidate forums?
They are virtually identical in every situation. The state and national leagues provide us with a template of rules that talk about how these should be run, and so. As I said, the standards are very rigorous. They seem very fair. There's, no bias whatsoever built into them. And I think that the candidates would agree that when they are the league forum, they appreciate how well the forum is run, and they appreciate the opportunity to really speak to the public.
Right. Yeah, the education opportunity.
Yeah.
So I just have one more question for you. Getting personal here, is there anything in your time with the league or career as a person in politics that you're proud of?
Well, I'm proud, as I mentioned early on in this interview, I'm proud of the fact that we are now the League of Women Voters of Nevada County, because I think that is a huge milestone with great opportunities for us to reach out to a previously unrepresented populace. I also I enjoy very much the league. And as I was chairman of the education part of the league, I really enjoyed bringing issues and panels and people to the community. So those are things that have been really important to me.
That's awesome. I'm very proud of the league as well. And thank you so much for your work with the League of Women Voters.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, it's amazing to be with you today.
Oh, well, thank you.
So if you'd like more information about the League of Women Voters, visit lwvnevadacounty.org. I think I got that right. I know it changed recently.
It did change.
Okay. And if you have any feedback on this piece, please email me at ncnpolitics@gmail.com. Good, bad, whatever, I can take it. It has been my privilege to be with you today. Remember, when it comes to politics, if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu. continue. Thank you, Fran Cole, and thanks for staying informed, Nevada County. I'll see you next month with another special guest.